Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. I wanted to continue our deep dive into the Jesuit Constitution and the Society of Jesus, the Catholic Order, and share with you some more stuff that they have in there, because I really like studying what all these Catholic orders are about, right? They have a huge history, and I like to, analyze them. And in this part that I read, it deals with what kind of candidates should be admitted to the Jesuit Society, what they look for, things like that. The next section of the next video will be with what disqualifies you. But for this is focusing on what they like. So one of the things that they have here is, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, is that prospects need to have a good memory, right? I like that because they need to remember a lot and be able to teach. And so a healthy mind is very important for them. They have to retain what they've learned and have the aptitude, right? They also said they need to possess a will that desires virtue and spiritual perfection. I thought that was interesting because it appears to me that they're really trying to hammer in the fact that they want people who are going to work on their shortcomings, right? And to have a good memory, and then to have this desire to be virtuous and attain spiritual perfection. It shows you that they are pushing their people to have a sort of God consciousness and to always be working on that. And us as Muslims, I also think that we desire to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to work on ourselves and our shortcomings as well. And memory is interesting because if you look at the people who narrated hadith, how their chain of narrators was so important, and how a person with a faulty memory, their hadiths don't really get a really strong grade. I found that to be similar in terms of the necessity of memorization, how people memorize and recite the Quran. So here you see them focusing on memory. Although Christians, I've never heard of a Christian memorizing the entire Bible and reciting it, whereas Muslims can recite the entire Quran, right? Now, memorizing certain verses, right? Okay. But the entire Bible? No, I have not seen that. Okay. It might be different for Jews in the Torah. I've seen them, recite, but bar mitzvah, I don't know. They do something, but Christians are a little different. They memorize Christian songs, right? I remember being in Sunday school and memorizing a bunch of songs and then singing it in the choir. But the different orders of Catholicism and then different sects of Christianity also have their own things. The Calvinists, the Protestants, the Catholics with their rosary, you name it, it's quite different. But nonetheless, memory is a huge factor. It also says they should be ready to be peaceful. They need to be constant. They need to have resolve in whatever enterprise of divine service they undertake. So constant, what is that for us Muslims? Steadfastness. Okay. Peaceful. I think that us Muslims being patient is a form of peacefulness, right? So we're not pacifists and seeking no conflict. But I think here what they mean is someone who isn't confrontational and seeking argumentative situations. Someone who's not always a contrarian antagonist or bickering, finding fault to have something to bitch about, right? I think what they're focusing on here is someone who wants harmony. And constant, so no sloths. Okay? This is interesting because some people have a stereotype that if you go to be one of these members of the societies, that you're just gonna have an easy, relaxed, piggish life, a glutton or something. It doesn't appear to be the case if you actually look at what they're preaching here. And resolve. Okay, so to be peaceful, to have resolve, to be constant, and they have to follow through. So you can't be a flake. I don't like flaky people. If you're gonna commit to something, commit. Do your best. But don't say, I'm gonna do this, and then, oh, I can't. Oh, maybe next week. Or after this day. It says flake, 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 flake. For Muslims, we're supposed to keep our oaths. Here, you can see that if someone is given a service to undertake, an objective, a goal, you need to be constant. So you may slow down, but you're constant, right? You're trying to get to the end. You're not just like, well, I'll just stop here and, I'll get to it when I get to it. No. Resolve. You want to keep going. And then they mentioned you also need to be zealous in regards to the salvation of souls. So zealotry, I think that's a very noble skill to have. For them, I think it's interesting because it helps them to keep up the fight against evil. So if you're zealous and constant and resolute and peaceful, and you're constantly desiring spiritual perfection, and you have a good memory, these are good traits to have, right? So I can see why they're asking for it. For Muslims, we don't necessarily call ourselves zealots. I don't really think that's vernacular we use. But we're steadfast, and men should be steadfast in giving dawah, right? And we need to have this drive. Like a lot of reverts to Islam, when we first convert, we got this, like, we want to go defend the faith. Like, it's just like a burst of energy. And it's really rejuvenating. Like, you're just so gung-ho. You're very into it. Keeping that up is what's key. Not letting other Muslims start to pull you into this sect or that sect, or bombard you with information. But also being steadfast in your faith, to where you keep that sort of tenaciousness about you, and the grasp onto your faith, like biting it with your molar teeth, the rope of Allah, right? That is something that we have as Muslims. But a zealous missionary and preaching is a little different, so I'm trying to think of the word that would work that I've heard for us Muslims. But zealousness, if you say that in America, usually a picture of a Christian preacher will come to mind. I think they should be more zealous. They've gotten very pacifist now. They've been beaten down by the liberal atheists. So reading this and this constitution of the Jesuits is quite refreshing. Because it shows that you're not just supposed to let the atheists take a dump on you, because they want to save those souls, right? How are you going to do that if you keep capitulating to the secular or liberal atheists? Don't make sense. They need to have a pleasing manner of speech. So Islam, having haya, that shyness about you, and the story of Harun and Moses, and Aaron going to Pharaoh, and how they were told to speak to him. It's interesting. So we all work on that when we convert to Islam, working on speech, right? It's really hard to let go of the guttural speaking patterns, but it is possible, right? But they do want somebody who is like, not every word out of their mouth is a curse word, or they talk with a lot of ghetto slang, right? Seems that they want to have a pleasing manner of speech. So the more eloquent, more vocabulary you have, communications essentially is important. Good appearance, so you don't want to be disheveled. It's very different than the Hindu Babas or the Aghoris, who can not bathe and wipe themselves in ash, being just walking around naked with long dreads that haven't been washed in a long time. It's quite different. So you see the differentiations here, and they're not like a bunch of shamans with bones in their hair who are painting their face different colors. It's different. They need good health and strength that allows them to uphold and sustain the labors of the Institute. I'm reading my notes here that I got from it. So health is important, and strength. So You can't just be like, oh, I'm as fat as a sumo wrestler, and I'm in poor health, so I'm going to go live in this place where they're just going to take care of me and pay all my bills, and I don't have to do anything. No, that's just not what the case is. And then I wrote here also that they had an age requirement, so that you had to be more than 14 years old for admission to probation, and 25 years old for profession. Now, there was a modification that said that there's not a specific age required, but you have to spend 10 years in the society before pronouncing your last vows. They're not admitting 10-year-olds. I think what the point is about the 25 years of age. But I do think that having a good age limit is important because it shows you the soundness of the mind. And there was another part here I actually wanted to read to you directly from the document, which says, to be completely suitable for the society, an applicant ought to have everything that has been mentioned. However, if someone lacks one or another of those qualifications, such as bodily strength, or the age for the profession, or something similar, and if it is just in the Lord that this lack is compensated for by his other qualities, and that when everything is taken into account, his admission would be a service to God, our Lord, and conducive to the end of the society. Oh, sorry, to the end of the society. To the ends, like the end means the end goal. The way it sounds is like the end, like you're trying to destroy it, but no, to the end goals. A dispensation may be granted him by the superior general or by the other superiors to the extent that he has communicated his authority to them. So, what this means, essentially, let's say you're kind of a little bit more, so you have strength, maybe, you walk with a limp or something, I don't know, you have some defect, but it's not huge, doesn't impede you fully, but you're sharp as a wit, right? You're a decent person, moral. Then someone of the superior general status, or just one of the other superiors, can give you a dispensation and be like, yeah, he can be granted in to the society because it's a good applicant. We don't want to lose him. And the age, so maybe you're like 21, so you are wise for your years. See what I'm saying? And then it also mentions here that those who are admitted to probation in chapter 2, that certain select fathers and brothers will help the candidate towards obtaining maturity in their vocation, while they prepare for entrance into the novitate by means of studies and apostolic experiments. So that's interesting. They'll have like a mentor. So it appears to have lots of mentorships. They're trying to really facilitate a literal society, as the name entails. But they're not just going to give up on you. If you got what they want, they're going to help you to feel welcome in their group. It's also noted here, a personal examination should be accurately made of candidates' lives, endowments, and aptitude for the society, their right intention, their defects of both soul and body, as well as of any impediments or hindrances that may happen to exist, paying special attention to and adapting to our own times the instructions found in the examen and the constitutions. So, intention here is mentioned again. Actions, as we Muslims say, actions are judged by their intentions, right? But they want to weed out any sneakiness or weirdos. And I think that's pretty cool. It appears they want to avoid infiltration. And for people to really study the candidates in a deep level, looking at their defects of the soul and body. What are some of their weaknesses? Are those weaknesses something that can be managed, or are they truly something that you need to watch out for, that is just too much of a risk? I found that to be quite interesting. And of the body, you got 3 toes missing. What is it? Is your vision okay? Is your hearing okay? Are you prone to headaches, back problems, stuff like that? The last thing that I annotated here was other appropriate means should also be used so that the society knows them fully. Therefore, unless the candidates are already well known, information should be sought concerning their health, virtues, education, practice of the Christian life, temperament, talents, studies completed, and with what success, the condition of their family and its social circumstances. And then it mentions that someone skilled in psychology should have a consultation with them as well. And that their information is going to be strictly safeguarded. Okay? And some candidates can be invited to live for a little while in one of their communities so that they can be better observed and see how well they fit in. But I did like how it, again, they're just reiterating. They're gonna know you on a deep level. Okay? What's your temperament like? What are your defects, both soul and body? What's your education status? What virtues do you have? Do you notice that they actually require you to know yourself and for the people to get to know you? This facilitates a strong bond. So if you can notice how they really want a society. And I found that to be very unique because they really take their perspective and admins to a serious level. They demand perfection in a way, and those who want perfection, and that is unique. So imagine if they got their goals, how strong would their ranks be? Yeah, I look at this as a Muslim. I think, how can Muslims help each other? Because we're supposed to be one ummah, right? And we have our ways, even though the Catholic Church is, they have their different orders and whatnot. And it's interesting to look at how strong the Catholic Church was at one time, and how, if you look at now, there's a lot of corruption. They have the worst pope they ever had in their history, and you're like, what happens to religions when they start to break away from what their texts actually do? What the wisdom of the past actually told them to do, and then they become progressive, they become modernized, they change, and everything falls apart. I found that to be quite unique when you look at it. Very interesting. They seem to want to create a nice atmosphere of spirituality, of strong-minded, potent spiritual warriors, pretty much. Very interesting. But it's all men. Okay? So far, it's used all male language here. Okay? Because it's all mentioned men leaving their wives and leaving their children. So I don't think this applies to women. This isn't for nuns. But yet it's not clear if the Jesuits at this time were only admitting men. So it's just only for men. But in Islam, men are allowed to be great sheikhs and have a family, right? Because if all your men join the society and no one's having kids, that'd be a problem, right? That'd be a huge problem for population and for your actual survival of your religion, right? It'd be quite different. Because remember, in the previous readings, they have to give up things as well to join. And they're of humble means. So you're not going to be in a yacht partying with a rapper or doing something of the world, right? They really want humble, wise folks in their society who are seeking spiritual perfection. And that requires control of the desires. And materialism is a desire that has to be reined in. Let me know what you think. Pretty cool section. I'm excited for the next one because it'll go through the opposite of what disqualifies. Here you can see the opposite. Like you read what they look for, and you can infer the opposite, but they're going to state more later on. So I hope you learned something. If you'd like to support the channel, it's www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive. Hope to see you there.